Hey you guys, welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. I know it's been a while. I've been just trying to get everything in the garden for the summer, and we've had so much rain the last month. And so when you have time to get out here and work, you just have to be focused on the work. But as you can see behind me, there's a lot that's different from the last time you all were with me here in the garden. So I thought I would bring you out and just give you a little garden tour. Here along this cattle panel here is where I had my peas planted, if you watch any of the previous videos. And they did really well. They got all the way to the top of the cattle panel, and we ate a lot of fresh peas. If I have some footage, which I think I might, I'll insert some here so you can see how they looked. They were really beautiful. They were really tasty, but it was just time for them to come out. So now this panel is planted with other things, and I will show you that. Now that the peas have come out, there's things like marigolds and tomatoes planted all along here. I do have some lettuce that is still going strong. This is actually some of the lettuce that I had planted that was, I'm trying to think of what I want to say. Oh, I direct sowed a whole lot of seeds so that it would serve as weed barrier, and I moved it when I needed that space for something else, and I brought it over here where I thought it would get more shade because it was under the peas that were here. But the kale is still going strong, and we're going to try and get down here. Here are some of the tomato plants. There's still cilantro here in the middle because I would like for it to drop its seeds, but everything's looking really nice so far. Here on this end of the bed, I've got a couple of tomato plants, my chives, which are a perennial, cilantro down in there. That zinnia is actually in a bucket because I just love them and I like to have them dotted around the garden. And then this cucumber is, it's actually a bushing cucumber, and my plan is to let it vine out over the side of the bed. But let's see if we can get in here close. You can see that is my first cucumber of the season, and I am so excited. Here you can see cucumber plants starting to climb the trellis. So many cilantro flowers. I do think I need to pull a lot of them because there's just so many, but they're beautiful, and I love to use them in bouquets as filler, kind of in place of something like baby's breath. And then also here, these are the rutabagas I sowed back, goodness, I think it was February. And I think we may actually get some rutabagas. I don't know how they'll taste with how hot it's been, but that would be really exciting. I'm going to show you guys some tomato plants I have planted here. They're both supposed to be Super Sweet 100 cherry tomatoes. These are plants I purchased because back in April, my aunt passed away and we went to Oklahoma for her funeral. And I accidentally left some of my starts on a heat mat because I was waiting for some things to germinate. And I lost some of my starts. I lost all of my tomatillos. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I also lost my Super Sweet 100 cherry tomato plants that I'd started. And so I found a good price on some at the store and got them to put in. I don't think one of these is a Super Sweet 100. I'm going to show you what the tomato looks like. I think it's probably going to just be a surprise big tomato because it definitely doesn't look like a cherry tomato. This is the plant that I think is not a Super Sweet 100. If you look at these tomatoes, they sure look like they're going to be some kind of slicer to me, but we'll find out. And then we're going to move over here to the other plant and see if I can find where there are tomatoes. Back right in there. Can you see them? They look more like a cherry tomato to me. So who knows? So I think it's pretty clear, not the same tomatoes on those two plants. I think that one is going to end up being some kind of slicer tomato just based on the shape. So we're just kind of in a wait and see pattern, and we'll find out what it is when it gets big and ripens. Maybe it'll be my new favorite tomato and it'll be a happy accident. So it's hard to complain about any kind of tomato, really, isn't it? And I have plenty of other cherry tomatoes in my garden. So we'll just see. I'll bring you along and we'll see what it is when it is big and ripe, and maybe we'll have some idea of what it actually is. Here in this area, I have squash plants planted to go up the trellis. And I'm going to try and get in here close so you can see. There's squash eggs right there. Squash bug eggs. So I need to get those monsters out of there. But this is also some of that lettuce that I sowed thickly from seed and moved. And there's another squash plant and a couple of celotias I planted just because they're beautiful and I like to have flowers in the garden. So let's see. I'm going to try and get a good shot here through the cattle panel. So down in here, between where those squash plants are and over where the kale and tomatoes are, I planted marigolds. I have volunteer dill, and I've planted several varieties of basil all down the center of this bed. So I'm hoping they're going to do well. They say basil is a good companion plant for tomatoes, so we'll just see how it goes. So the last things really in this bed to show are these Roma tomato plants. These are going into cages, you can see, because they are determinate plants. They're bushing tomatoes, but I'm hoping to get a really big crop off of these for canning. And if I come down here, I have a watermelon plant that I'm planning on letting go crazy off the bed, and a couple of volunteer zinnias in here with my chives and onions. So this bed is just chock full of stuff, and hopefully we're going to get lots of food out of it. This pretty sizable section right here is all of my sweet peppers and my chives. Let's see, what all do I have here? So I have snacking peppers. I have Cornito Rosso peppers. I have Edgevarsky peppers, Corno de Toro peppers, and then I have something called the Jim Parker. Now, I'm curious to see how the Jim Parker turns out, because where I ordered my seeds from, they called them a thick-walled sweet pepper. But I was watching a video on YouTube where somebody else said they were planting Jim Parkers this year, and that person where they ordered their seeds from, that company called them a chili pepper, and that it had some heat to it. And so I'm not really sure what we're going to get here. Some of them are actually in this bed with the sweet peppers, and some of them are down with my hot peppers. So it's just an experiment, I guess. Hopefully they'll be good peppers regardless of whether they're sweet or they're hot, and we'll just have good peppers. You guys, I'm about to show you one of those, the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of things. This is definitely the bad and the ugly of gardening. I have some squash plants that 2 of them don't look very good because they were kind of sad little starts that I bought to replace plants that had been killed by something. The 3rd plant is definitely dying and I need to pull it out, and it's been gotten by a vine borer. So just the reality of gardening. So here are the plants I'm talking about. You can see that these 2 little plants look pretty sad, although they're starting to green up now that they're in the ground. But these are just little starts that I got from a nursery to fill in. But here, this was the biggest of these plants. Didn't even get big enough to start flowering or anything. See if we can get in here and I can show you. There at the stem where it had vine borer damage. It's so disappointing, but it's just how gardening goes sometimes. Right here I have a Sun Gold cherry tomato. These are one of my absolute favorite cherry tomatoes. And I'm going to see if I can get down in here. You can see the first one is ripening on the vine. I'm very excited to eat that in a few days. This trellis here, these are 2 cattle panels put together to make an arch trellis. And this is where my slicing cucumbers are. When I say they're slicing cucumbers, I mean slicing cucumbers, because none of my cucumber seeds germinated this year. I don't know if it was the weather. I don't know if my seeds just got too old. But so I went to my local nursery and they had a 6-pack of plants labeled slicing cucumbers. And so I thought some cucumbers are better than none, but they're doing really well. You can see they're starting to climb. And I think it's kind of funny, but I have some volunteer beans climbing the trellis as well, and they have started to flower. So I've just let this one plant go, and we'll get a few beans off of it. Here I have more squash plants. You can see the ones that came up from seed are looking really nice, and that is another one of the ones that I bought, and it's a little sad. We'll see if they bounce back. But the two larger ones are something called a red curry squash. I just think they're a beautiful squash. You're supposed to be able to eat them like an acorn squash, but they're vining so they can climb the trellis. And hopefully they do well for me and those vine borers don't make it over here. I'm about to show you my onions. They are in that landscape fabric. If you've been here with me for a while, they are a weedy mess between all of the rain we've had and just trying to get everything else planted. I just didn't have time to try and weed them. And I think it's not because I used the landscape fabric. I think that if I had been able to put that fabric down and let it hang out for a month or two and weeds could have germinated and then died under it before I burned holes in it, it would have probably worked really well. But I just put it down and then immediately burned holes in it. And so all around the onions, weeds came up. There's some big, beautiful onions in here. So I'm not too upset about this. And when the onions come out here really soon, we'll pull all the weeds. And this is actually where my sweet potatoes are going to go. But I just wanted to prepare you. Absolute weedy mess. See, can you even tell that it's an onion bed? I don't think I would know that if I wasn't the one who planted the onions here, but we're going to try and get in here and get a peek at some of the onions because there are some really nice onions. See? Onions, they're just all buried in the weeds. Along these panels here, I have more squash planted, some basil, cilantro. I've thrown in some flowers like celosia and nasturtiums. I love these nasturtiums with these variegated leaves. I just think they're the most beautiful thing. And their leaves are so unique compared to other plants. You'll never mistake a nasturtium for something else. But I just love them. And then here's some more squash and more cilantro. And more chives. I like to have chives all over the place and a beautiful pot of marigolds. Now we have all of my spicy peppers, my chili peppers. Down at that end, I have poblanos, and then I have something called a Big Jim pepper. They are similar to an Anaheim. Then jalapenos. I have one serrano pepper and a couple of cayennes. And then in here, I called them Jim Parkers earlier. They're Joe Parkers is the name of the pepper that I'm unsure about if it's a sweet pepper or a chili pepper because different seed companies say something different about each one. So again, those are just going to be an experiment. We'll see if they're sweet or they're spicy. And then finally down at this end, I'll bring you guys down here and show you our 6 eggplants. Now, my eggplants have quite a bit of flea beetle damage on them. In my personal experience, I don't really try and do anything about that because the flea beetles are fairly short-lived here and the peppers outgrow that damage. I'm actually looking and some of them already look like they have leaves that are looking better. So I think we're about to get past the flea beetle season, but I'll bring you down here and show you what they're looking like. Here are the eggplants and you can see, you look, the leaf, they just have tiny holes, some of them not so tiny, but just holes all in the leaves. But like I said, my eggplants normally bounce back from this just fine and give me plenty of eggplants. So otherwise, they're growing well. They're a good color. I think we're going to get a good eggplant crop this year. The last thing I was going to show y'all in my raised bed garden. Oh my goodness, you guys, let's see if we can get a shot of this guy. There's a goldfinch on a Cosmo down here. Not a Cosmo, a zinnia. Oh, look at them. I'm sorry, let me see if I can set my camera down so that it's not moving too much. Aren't they beautiful? I hope this picture isn't too granular. But anyway, this bed here, I guess technically it's two beds. It is full of zinnias and cosmos. There's basils planted here. And then there are a few extra pepper plants because I didn't have anywhere else to put them. I had too many. So last year I planted this full of these kind of things, and it was just a beautiful bed full of flowers, and I loved it. So hopefully this year it's going to be just as pretty. I don't think I've showed you guys much of my fruit trees before, so we'll go ahead and do this. This is an apple tree behind me. It's a Liberty apple, which said it grew well here, so that's why I got it, although it's sort of funny because I actually have a niece named Liberty. But it's full of apples on it this year. It does have some unhappy looking spots, some dead stuff that I need to try and get out. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with these spots, but I just need to get out here with some pruners and prune them out, I think. But if you happen to know what actually is going on with them, please let me know. So this is an arbor with a swing that we put back here, and it has grapevines growing on it. The vines that are actually on the swing are a little bit sad looking, but I will show you here in just a second. There's some that have creeped over into my blackberries that are looking beautiful. Also, we have this fire pit that does not work well with the landscape fabric around it, and so we decided we were going to plant celosia in it because we thought it would kind of look like little faint flames of fire. So we'll see how this turns out. It's just an experiment this year. So here are some of my blackberries. These definitely should have been pruned back because this cane comes all the way down to the ground. But you can see they're just covered in, let me get my hand in here for scale, just covered in beautiful blackberries that are growing. And then here are where the grapes have creeped over. But look at that. If these make it, and there's several bunches, this will be the first time we've gotten grapes off of our grapevine. So that will be so exciting. I am going to show you guys this because maybe somebody will know what we need to do in future years. This is what our peaches always look like. And I'm not sure exactly what we need to do to treat them, but we would like to get peaches off of this tree. So the truth is, even if the peaches had not been all gross this year, we had a really late frost and most of the peaches on this tree didn't make it because it was already flowering and it got down to like 26 degrees. But it would have been nice to have had some peaches. So this is the third year it's put on fruit and we just haven't gotten fruit because it looks like that. And I just don't know what it is or what we should be doing for it. So again, if you know what it is and know what we should be doing to treat this tree, we definitely prefer organic gardening. But I don't think the peaches we buy at the local nurseries are organic. So even if we had to spray something on it, as much as I wouldn't like to, it would at least be fruit coming out of our backyard. Here on this arch in my in-ground area, I planted watermelon and cantaloupes. I'm afraid this gets a little too much shade, so we'll see how it does. I'm really hopeful. And then behind it is more of the blackberry trellis. So here is my green bean trellis. This is 12 feet long. And you can see there's beans climbing all the way up now. So that's awesome. And I don't know if you can hear it in my microphone, but it has started to rain. So I'm going to try and do this pretty quickly here and actually finish filming this. Here I have zucchini and yellow squash growing. And right in there, you can see they're starting to put on fruit, which I'm thrilled about. And then down here, I wanted to show you, we picked one and ate one already, but these are the cabbages I planted back in February. and they are definitely ready to be harvested, but they look really good. So here behind me are the last two things I'm going to show you in the vegetable garden. Here we have a row of tomatillos. These are actually pretty fantastic because the tomatillos are one of the things I lost when I left plants on the heat mat when I went to Oklahoma for several days. And every single one of these, there are 10 of them, were volunteers that had popped up in this in-ground garden area. Some of them actually in holes. I think there were like 2 or 3 that were actually in actual holes. And then the rest of them are ones that I just moved, and they are looking fabulous. They're covered in flowers. I'm so thrilled. And then this here on this side are my cherry tomatoes. I have a Super Sweet 100, I have Sun Golds, I have Black Cherry, and I have a couple of Purple Bumblebee tomatoes. I have one Sunrise cherry tomato that I need to get in the ground because they were also one of the things that I lost during the trip. And so it was a little puny, so I was trying to baby it before I actually put it in the garden, and that's going to go over in the raised bed garden. But otherwise, these guys are just covered in flowers and looking beautiful, and I'm really excited about them. I thought I would just bring you over and give you a little bit of a closer look at these. They're getting just about tall enough that I'm going to be able to clip them up to the cattle panel, but you can see all of these flowers on the cherry tomatoes. And let's see if we can get in here close. Here, the tomatillos have a bunch of flowers as well. So it won't be long before we're making salsa verde and nibbling on cherry tomatoes, and it will be fantastic. So there you have it. That's where the garden is right now. It's mostly planted. The things that still need to go in the ground are things that I have to wait to pull a few things out. So when those cabbages come out, I will be putting okra in. And when the onions come out, I have some eggplants to put there. And that is also where my sweet potatoes will go. So I have that to look forward to still. But thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm going to try and be better about filming more frequently now that the hard work of getting the garden all in is done. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.